Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Werner, and today I'm going to be rhetorically analyzing John Green's The Anthropocene Reviewed, specifically his chapter on the Notes app. The first thing to discuss is past. This stands for purpose, audience, speaker, and situation. So Green's purpose of the text is not only to display his personal history, but exemplify the concept that memory is filtered. And the Notes app is a perfect place for it. As we can see here with the audience, Green's audience is himself, but the Notes app is the lens in which he can evaluate his history from a specific standpoint, as you don't typically put every little thought anywhere. It typically goes in the Notes app. There are some thoughts that can be articulated to others that can be written down on a paper, but there are others that you take out your phone and you write in this app, and it displays how technology has been integrated as a core part of our lives and psyche over the years. So Green's audience being himself, typically readers are the audience, but Green is, as we're going to say, speaking from a first-person point of view. He's speaking to himself about himself. He's using words and possessive words such as I and me. And in the situation, he's scrolling through his phone on the Notes app, and he's reflecting upon his past notes on the iPhone. We're going to look at an overview of the rhetorical devices and strategies present throughout the entire chapter. We're going to first start off with devices and pace. So the main device of this chapter is anecdotes. Green is telling a story about himself, as I mentioned before, and it's used. There are disparate anecdotes, so there are different notes and different visual divisions on the page, which create a disruptive pace, and this contributes actually to his overall purpose and claim that memory is incongruous. So now we're going to talk about chronology. Now this is heavily manipulated throughout the entire passage. Something we can think about and visualize is a triangle. So at the bottom left-hand corner, we have Green's life before the Notes app, right? And then moving up, it's his life with the Notes app, and at the zenith of the triangle, that top point, is Green's life presently away from the Notes app. So we have a standard chronological flow. It's from past to present, but then around the halfway mark, we shift into a reverse chronological order. We discuss certain notes. So this spans from 2019 to 2010. And so this can be visualized as the second side of the triangle, where it's falling from that tip and it's falling down to the bottom right. Now, to mention biographical criticism, we have to understand that John Green is an overthinker. He's an analyst. So what may be just a Notes app to some is not to him. He's seeing these notes and he's remembering certain aspects of himself. He's reflecting on certain aspects of himself. And this will bring us to our next slide. About theme and tone. So the theme of the chapter is that it promotes reflection, to know oneself deeper. Throughout this entire chapter, Green is reflecting. He's thinking, look at what I did. Why did I do this? Do I really remember what I was doing when I wrote this note down? So these are the questions that Green asks himself, and it kind of rubs off on the reader too. Just reading the chapter naturally asks the reader to do some reflection. So now we're going to talk about tone. So there actually is a tonal contrast present in the chapter. Green is reflective, like said earlier, but he's not profusely emotive. And what this means is really, like we can see through his anecdote specifically, the notes seem more interesting, but they don't draw out a particularly troublesome or super happy memory of Green's. They are almost looked at from a neutral standpoint. So now we're going to get into rhetorically analyzing. We're going to look at the meat and potatoes. So first we're going to start off with the appeal. The appeal is ethos. This is present throughout the entirety of the chapter, and it's ethos because he draws upon his personal knowledge and his experience to support his argument. So we're going to see his ethos being built up later by some literary references. These don't directly relate to the purpose of the text, but they kind of give the reader a sense of where John Green's coming from. And he's not really logically convincing you of anything. He's not provoking any emotion. He's mainly saying, this is what I think, this is what I did, and wow, that was kind of cool. So now we're going to talk about juxtaposition. So given that this chapter is really into playing around with chronology, we're going to see some juxtaposition of the past and the present. So we can see if we look on the left-hand side in light blue, we're going to look at back then, even now, and for most of my life, while my dog is not barking. So these can show a shift, a literary shift between the past and the present, supporting the chronology. And it reflects upon the relevance of the past and the present, as we can see in the last sentence of the first paragraph. And John Green kind of brings this all to a crux idea that perhaps all of this is done in the hopes that we won't notice just how quickly everything is changing. Now, this is a central idea, but not the overarching purpose. So it's something to keep in mind as we go through the rest of the chapter. So now we're going to talk about what was previously discussed, anecdotes. These are going to be the main rhetorical device present, as he's basically just telling a story. The notes app is a part of his life. It's not a research paper, it's memories. So anecdotes are memories and they support the ethos that Green is trying to establish, because we're seeing as a reader, like, wow, this happens to him, so he has the credibility to talk about it. Of course, you have the credibility to talk about your own memories. So now we're going to move into paragraphs 5 to 6. This is also the first half. We'll see in a regular chronological order. So we're going from past to present. We're going up on that triangle. So the appeal still remains as ethos. He draws upon his personal knowledge. We're doing anecdotes continuously, which support the ethos. And then, of course, there's the chronology that I already talked about. As we can see the years in orange on the left-hand side, and some phrases that connect to chronology. So 2008, 2010, 2020, it all goes in a very linear pace. So that kind of marks us and grounds us into, okay, this is the first half of the text. So now we are going to move actually into the second half of the text. This is where he gets into the years. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we're going from 2019 to 2017, right? So we're actually going backwards. We're going in reverse chronological order. And yet the appeal still remains to be ethos. There are still anecdotes, but something that I'm addressing now is literary and pop culture allusions. So we can see those in green on the left-hand side, and they're present throughout the entire essay, and they appeal, like I said earlier, to his psyche, his influences, his personal experiences, and that supports his ethos. Alright, so next we're going to talk about the years 2014 to 2016, of course in reverse chronological order, and these are going to be chapters 10 through 12. The appeal still remains to be ethos. There are still anecdotes. There are still literary and pop culture allusions, and something that is kind of specific but not super specific to this section here is the use of introspection. We can see this on the left-hand side. And introspection is, of course, looking inside to yourself, and of course that's drawing on memories, but there are certain phrases like "sometimes I feel like" or "my anxiety." John Green loves to talk about his anxiety, that are kind of highlighted in this section. So we can see that personal thoughts are drawn upon this introspection. Now discussing chapters 13 to 16, 2010 to 2013. This is the last section of his notes, and this doesn't lead to, normally at the end of his chapters he will delineate a clear purpose, but we're going to see that actually come in 2013 in the red. We'll get to that in a second. So we still have the appeal of ethos, we still have the anecdotes, we still have some allusions. Now we're going into some biblical allusions with Matthew 24 and quoting the Bible, a memory from his time at church. And now we're going into the purpose. Now, if you'll direct your attention towards the red underlined, we can see that memory is a filter. He says memory is not so much as a camera as a filter. The particulates it holds are nothing. The particulates it holds onto are nothing compared to what leaks through. So this exemplifies the filter of memory, and how, especially in the Notes app, it's random stuff. There's no better way to describe it. There are just some specific things that you won't write down on a piece of paper, you won't tell. You'll just pull out your phone and you'll write in the Notes app. It almost becomes ingrained in human culture, in human society, that this overtaking of technology, and it gives one, as I mentioned earlier, a chance to reflect upon. So now we're going to go into an overall review. And as I talked about before, there is anecdote as a primary rhetorical device. Chronology is manipulated and supported by a juxtaposition of the past and present. The disruptive pace contributes to the overall purpose, seeing memory as a filter. Allusions include biblical, literary, and pop culture. And then ethos is the primary appeal. So my rating of this chapter is a 3. So I rated it 3 out of 5 stars because I find it interesting, yet this seemed more of like a personal journey and didn't seem absolutely pertinent to me and other readers, and there wasn't really a super clear purpose. Normally everything draws upon itself, but sometimes it just didn't come out as clearly here. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. Just enjoy that graphic, and thank you.